It's about that time again. Time for another Tech Help Quick Queries. This is where I answer some of the questions emailed to me over the past few months that don't quite merit a video all to themselves, but they're interesting nonetheless. It's been about 2 months since I did the last Quick Queries, so I got a bunch of questions, and let's get to them. First question comes from Terry, one of my gold members. Terry says, could you possibly give some insight as to why Access and Excel are still limited to VBA, rather than allowing a more robust and object-oriented programming language like C#? No, I can't. Access doesn't get a lot of the love like some of the other apps like Excel get too. So I don't make those decisions. That's a Microsoft question. But personally, in my nearly 30 years of working with Access, I've never needed anything more than VBA to get the job done. So yeah, I did some, I used to be a C++ programmer before I started working with Access, and object-oriented stuff is nice, but I've never needed it for an Access database, and I've built some pretty complicated databases. So I don't know. You have to send that one to Microsoft and ask them. Next question from Sam on YouTube. I just watched your simple security video. I've got my database split. Is there any way to protect the back-end file from people opening it up directly and seeing the data? Yes and no. No, you really can't secure it against people who know Access. So if you're worried about the IT nerd in your office getting in there, forget it. The only true way to secure your data is to use SQL Server or another database server platform. Now, there are some simple tricks that you can do to prevent average Joe user from getting in there. The one thing I like to do is make an auto exec macro or even a startup form and put that in your back-end database. So when they open up, if they browse on the network and just open up the I almost said MDB, the ACCDB file, your auto exec macro will have one line in it: quit, right? Or your startup form can just quit. That's it. So if they try to open it up, it'll just exit the database. Again, an Access user will know to hold the Shift key down to bypass the startup options. Yes, you can disable that too. Or an experienced Access user will know that you can just connect to it from another database and pull the data in that way. So there are a lot of things you can do. That's the whole point of the simple security video, is if you've got an office full of people that you trust, and maybe you're not worried about them being, nefarious, and maybe they're not Access experts, the simple security stuff is things you can do to keep the average person out. It's like locks on a screen door, right? Someone is determined enough they're going to get in there, right? But these little tricks will keep the average person who's nosy from just going in there and poking around. Now, I do have an encryption seminar where I show you how you can encrypt things in the backend table, make them look like gibberish, right, using an encryption scheme. So something like a credit card number, for example, you can scramble it. So even if they do get a whole copy of your database table, it'll be meaningless garbage, okay? And the code is saved in your VBA. I'll put links to all my security stuff down below, but no, the only true way to protect your data is to use a database server. Next question, one of my good gold members, John Davey. Can you give us your thoughts on passing a variable like a report name or using a temp var? Temp vars is pretty cool. There's a lot of ways you could pass information back and forth between forms and reports. All right, you can use a field on a form directly, where you say forms, ! Form name, ! Field name. You can use global variables, all right, which you have to dim in a public module, okay? Or you can use temp vars. Temp vars is a nice little name value pair thing. And I know like Adam's been bugging me for a while to do a temp vars lesson. I've got one coming. I got a lesson on temp vars coming, okay? But it really all depends on what you're trying to do. For most things, form fields are just fine. I like to use temp vars for things that are going to stick around for a while, like whole system level stuff. All right, temp vars are also good because they will survive any VBA crashes. Like if your code syntax error is out, your temp vars don't clear, whereas global variables will clear. So there's lots of pros and cons. Look for a video on temp vars coming out pretty soon. Next up, Jimmy Flower, one of my longtime Access students. How can I use Access to receive emails? In the past, you made a seminar on how to send emails, but I don't remember that you made some course on how to receive and store emails in an Access database. Okay, so yeah, the Tech Help videos that I've made so far and the classes, my normal expert level classes, I've showed how to send email. I do have an email seminar. It's available on my website. I put a link down below, and I do show you how to connect to Outlook to retrieve emails. Okay, and I show you how to get past that annoying security message. It's real simple. Just update your virus protection, and then you get around the Outlook security messages. But in that class, I show you how to connect to Outlook, to parse the inbox, in other words, to go down the stuff in the inbox. And if you want to, you can pull that stuff into a table in Access. It's not exactly easy to do. I use it myself. All my customer service emails that people email to me, they get forwarded to a separate inbox, which then I pull in through Outlook. It's not 100% perfect, I'll be honest with you. At least once a week, I have to restart Outlook because it locks up. It's a nature of the way that the connections work between Outlook and Access. But it's good enough for most purposes. I wouldn't rely on it for anything business critical, but actually connecting to a mail server and reading mail directly is a pain. I've tried it before. I don't recommend it. But if you want to use another email program like Outlook to receive the email, then you can use Access to connect to it and pull that in. Sure, why not? Email seminar, it's in there. Next up, Sherry via YouTube. I'm trying to make the can grow, can shrink work in the page header of a report, but I'm having no luck. Is there a secret to it or just not doable in the page header? Nope, sorry. The page header and footer in a report does not have a can grow, can shrink property. All right, any objects that you put in there are of a fixed height. If you want them to grow and shrink, you'll have to use the report header and footer. Okay? Okay, sorry about that. Again, not me. Send your complaints to Microsoft about that one. I didn't design Access. I'd add that if I had my opportunity, but usually it's only one fixed thing anyways, so I don't know why you'd want to have a variable length something or other in the page header. But, okay. Next up, Mylan, one of my Access students. Recently, one of my databases all of a sudden began generating error messages saying the database is corrupt and was refusing to open. I had to resort to spending money for a data recovery program, which worked fortunately. However, it dropped about 60 of my records. Access only allows 2 gigabytes of data. My database has reached that quota and more. I'm having to copy some records into new tables. Each of the records in my tables have attachments, boo, which I presume is why the tables filled up so quickly. Yes. Yes, that is exactly why your tables filled up so quickly. Again, in all my experience with Access, I very seldomly have come across people who legitimately have used up that 2 gigabyte size for regular records, unless they were working with attachments or images. Access is a database, but it's not designed as file storage. Okay, it's not designed to hold file attachments or images. In fact, every image that you put in the database instantly doubles in size. Same thing for file attachments. All right, just the way Access stores it. So you got a 100K image, boom, it's 200K. Okay? You are much, much, much better off storing the files in your hard drive. Make a folder under your database folder, and then store the path and file name of that attachment in the database. Don't store the attachment itself in the database. Watch my images TechHelp video. It's free, and I show you how to do that with images and display the image. All right, you can use the same thing with attachments. Just store the location of it. Don't store the actual attachment itself. Trust me. There are 2 things that I suggest you never use in Access. One is the attachment file type, and another is multi-valued fields. They're evil. You should use a related record. Okay? In fact, the boys and I, my Access veterans that help me out on the site, have tried to come up with a list of all the stuff that's evil that you should never do in Access. I'll put a link to this down below. It's called Evil Access Stuff. Spaces in your object names, right? Tables, fields, and so on. Trust me, it'll hurt you later. Don't use reserved words, things like name or date as a field name. Split forms. I don't like those. All right. Attachment data types. There it is. Don't use it. All right. Overlay objects and pictures. Multi-valued fields. All right. Don't try to use Google Drive as an Access database storage unit. All right. Or Dropbox or any of that. Don't host your database out of it. It's okay to back your database up to it. All right. But if you're going to, don't work out of a Google Drive folder. Okay. It will corrupt your database. Don't use a single shared database file on a network with multiple users opening it. Split it properly. I got videos on that. All right. Don't use auto numbers that you care about. They're for Access's internal use only. People always say, hey, how do I get these auto numbers back? Don't worry about it. They're not for you. All right. And yeah, I got a video on how to get them back if you really need to. Okay. In case you accidentally delete something, you want to put it back without having to worry about changing all the related records. I don't like switchboards. Okay, use menu forms. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff. All right, so feel free to read through this if you want to. It's evil access stuff. It's on my website. I'll put a link down below. Next up, another one of my Access students, Aaron. Is it possible to connect to my bank account and download the data and import to Access? Yeah, sure. Most banks and PayPal and credit cards, at least all the ones I have, they have an option where you can download all your transactions for either the month or the day or whatever. Once you've got that file downloaded, if it's a CSV file, like it looks like a comment delimited file that you could pull into Excel, you could just import that into Access and then with an update query, copy that stuff over to your transaction table. That's certainly possible. In fact, I've got a video coming up on this soon where I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, as far as connecting directly to your bank and having Access just pull the information in without having to do a download and then an import, it's possible. I haven't done it yet, though. I was just reading about it online. There's a company called Plaid, Plaid, and they do provide an API, an application programming interface, that will allow you with VBA to connect to your bank directly. Again, I haven't used it yet. I haven't tried it. If any of you have experience with it, let me know. And if it's something that you guys feel that it works, by all means, let me know, and I'll look into it. I personally use PayPal for most of my bank transactions, as far as like my business transactions go. And once a week or so, I just go to their site, click the thing, download their file. It gives me all of my transactions for the last week, and I pull them into my Access database, and I synchronize them up to reconcile them, and it takes me 10 seconds. I am going to be putting together a lesson on how to do that. So that'll work with PayPal, with most banks that offer a CSV download. All right, it's pretty simple, straightforward to do. I'll be merging that with my check register database too. Next up, question from Adam, one of my Access veterans. Curious, when you design databases, how much do you make the apostrophe comments, remarks in the code? I'm wondering if I should get used to doing it everywhere for future database design if it's industry standard. Okay, so I've evolved in my thinking about this over the last 40 years of programming. When I first started coding, way back in the day, back in the 1840s, I didn't comment at all. I figured they were for people who either worked in teams so they could more easily understand each other's code, or like their company kind of required it. Okay? And I've always been a development team of exactly one. Just me. I've never worked in a development team. So I've always been like a lone gunman kind of thing. So I didn't bother. I've got some code that I wrote back in the 90s, and I look at it sometimes, and I'm like, what was I thinking? What is all this code, right? So now that I've been programming for almost 40 years, I write comments for future Rick. All right, it's a development team of me in the future when I forget what I've done today, okay? I go back to code I wrote 10 years ago, and I'm like, what the hell is all this crap? What was I doing? Plus, you got to, if you're not very explicit with your variable names, if you just use X instead of number of iterations or whatever, which I do that a lot. I use single variable names, single character variable names. So yeah, unless the code is blatantly obvious, I write comments to future me to explain what I did. Okay, and the fact that the comments in Access at least show up in green, the comment code shows up in green, it helps to break up long patches of code. So I try to introduce large code blocks with a comment. Here, this is where we're going to parse the order or whatever. And I know I don't always comment in my videos when I'm teaching. I should, but it's one of these do as I say, not as I do things. Comment. I used to say don't bother with it, but over the last 10 years especially, I'm going back and looking at stuff that I wrote, 20 years ago, and I'm like, what is this? So yeah, use your comments. They're for you. Next up, Usman from YouTube. I had trouble figuring out why my form was not showing fields whenever I would create it from a query with multiple tables. I've finally figured out that the form that's based on multiple tables, 3 or more, with a many-to-many relationship, but can circumvent this by using form property to dynaset inconsistent. I think you should make a video on this, as it was my biggest headache, and nowhere I saw an explanation, so it would benefit beginners like me. Okay, I get what you're saying. You've got a many-to-many relationship, which involves 3 tables. You got the table on the left, the table on the right, and a junction table between them. I've got a video on many-to-many relationships. Go watch it, please. Now, the thing is that I would never base a form off of a query that has multiple tables in it. It's one of my no-nos, okay? If you've got a many-to-many relationship, you should be making a form with a subform in it. All right, the parent form is based on one of the two tables. The subform is based on the junction table, and it can pull in information from the third table. All right, and I covered that in my many-to-many. I see lots of people do that. Even with just two tables, they'll pull them into a query, and then they'll make a form off that query. No, you can't. The data is inconsistent because you're not always sure which table is going to be taking control behind that form. All right, so forms should be based on a table or a query with a single table in it. You can bring in some helper data if you want to, but again, most helper data I would put in a combo box. Okay, so many-to-many relationships, think form with subform. Okay, almost always, 99% of the time. This is just a public service announcement, and I wanted to bring this up. I put a note in my notes to mention this in one of my videos. Beware of phishing emails. They're called phishing scams. You get an email, it looks like it's from your bank or Facebook or me. I don't know why anyone bothers spoofing my stuff, but it could happen. Right? My girlfriend recently had a problem where she got an email saying it was from Instagram, and that it was like a password reset thing. Like, oh, so you're trying to reset your password? Click here. And she's like, I never requested to reset my password, so she clicked on it, and it took her to a site where it asked for her username and password. That's how the scammers get your username and password. Right? They'll send you a fake link. It's from Bank of America or whoever you bank with. You might not even bank with them. If they send out 1 million of these emails, a small percentage of them are going to work. Right? If 1/10 of 1% of the people fall for it, right? You go to a site that they've made that looks like Bank of America. It's got a very similar domain name even, like Bank 0F America or something like that. You type in your username and password. It says, okay, your password's been, but whatever. Now you just gave them your username and your old password. All right, so if you get anything that's suspicious looking, especially from a bank or anywhere you got money, don't click on the link in that email. Go to your bank's website and log in and check it out. All right, public service announcement. Yeah, I was just going through this, and I thought that I would tell you guys, because people still fall for this stuff. If people stopped falling for this stuff, they would stop doing it, right? Next up, DG Ewing, a gold member, says, the extended cut for your send email video did not cover multiple addresses in one email like you said it would. I have a form or query with a list of members, and I want to generate one email and send to everyone on the form or in the query, so the two would have several email addresses. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I said I would show you how to send one email to multiple people. I didn't necessarily mean the same email was going to go to everybody, right? I see what you're trying to do. You want to put all the addresses together in the two. I think that's a bad way of sending emails out. I like to send an individual email to each recipient. But you can certainly do it this way. All you have to do is, instead of looping and sending one email per, just loop and build a string. Right? Say S equals email 1 and a semicolon and email 2, right? Right? Just loop and do that. Start off S as blank, and then each time it loops, say S equals S and a semicolon and whatever the next email address is. Right? Put them all together. You might need a space in there too. You might need a semicolon space. I don't remember. And that will put them all in the to field. Then you just send one email to that whole list. Okay? But I like my way better. But whatever works for you. Next up, Rabid Follower and I have been going back and forth with comments on my YouTube channel about the Age and Age Part 2 videos. And he brings up some really good points. And I'm not going to cover the whole thing here. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link down below. You can go see it for yourself. But basically, the one formula that I use that's pretty bulletproof for calculating age, all right, it does have one exception that Rabid Follower pointed out. It will fail if the person was born on February 29th and it's currently a leap year. It will have them as 1 year less than what they should be. So if they should have turned 21 and it's February 29th, it'll still show that they're 20, okay? So it works like 99.9999 whatever percent of the time, okay? But this really is more of a legal issue than a technical one. And I've got a couple of articles. I'll put links down in the links section below. I got 3 articles, in fact. It turns out most of the states in the United States here say that if you're born on February 29th, then March 1st is your legal birthday. A few have laws the other way. They make February 28th your legal birthday. So the bottom line is you should just be aware of this and program your database accordingly, which, of course, is the whole beauty of using Access. You can do whatever you want. So if you're using this to track, if someone's legal to drink, yeah, there's that 1/10 tiny little chance that they might have to say to you, hey, no, my birthday is actually, today. I should be 21, and then you can override it, of course. But if figuring out drinking age is an issue, usually it's not a problem, because that either happens when they turn 18 or 21, and if they're born on a leap year and it's currently a leap year, they can only be 16, 20, 24, see what I'm saying? So you can never turn 18 or 21 if you were born in a leap year and it's currently a leap year. See what I'm saying? It has to be a multiple of 4. So it's a very, very specific situation, and I wouldn't really worry too much about it. But that's why I always like to allow human overrides for situations like this too. If a database flags person is underage, a human can still override it. Okay? So just keep that in mind. But thank you. Yes, anytime anybody ever finds an issue with one of my databases or some code, bring it to my attention. I love it. I love being wrong because it gives me an opportunity to learn something. Right? I just did a database a couple days ago about figuring out the first Monday of the month. All right, and right away one of my students is like, "Oh, here's a simpler function you can use." Yeah, works great. And I haven't fully beat it up yet to see if there's. I found some code online when I was doing some research, because I always research, even if I know how to do something, I always do a quick little Google search just to see if there's a better way. And I found some like one-line code things that, a very easy way to find the first Monday of the month, for example. But it failed, guess what, during leap years. So I couldn't use it. And it was like the top 3 Google searches for how to do this in VBA came back with this wrong code that isn't going to work in a leap year. It would come back with like the 31st, in a February. I was like, what? No. Just goes to show you, folks, Google searches are the whole Google system, and I love Google, I love YouTube, not saying anything bad about them, but they don't check relevancy. They don't check whether their results are right. They just show you popular pages, basically, pages that other pages have linked to, whether they're right or not. Of course, if relevancy was all they cared about, then I would be in the top of all the search rankings for every keyword that I'm under. Ha 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 ha. I'm just kidding. Another PSA, by the way. Speaking of leap years, a couple people have asked me in the last couple of months, is there a quick way to check to see if this year is a leap year? Well, there is no is leap year function in VB. And there's rules you could try to mathematically figure out if, okay, is it divisible by 4, but it's not a century, unless a century is also divisible by 400. No, don't do all that stuff. Just use the isDate function. Right? IsDate, put in 229, and then whatever the year is. And if that comes back as true, then it's a leap year. It's valid. Right? There won't be a February 29th in a non-leap year, and isDate will come back as false. All right? And just tack on whatever year you want there. Okay? Next up, Wendell Day, one of my gold members. Hi there. Hi, Wendell. Is it possible to scan either a barcode or a QR code and the result be a printed PDF document in msaccess? I manage a small clinic-based pharmacy and would like to place a QR code on the medication bottles that triggers the printing of a patient educational materials PDF when scanned. I can't figure this out. Thank you. Okay. I don't think you'd need to go QR code. QR codes are usually used for like big, long, like lots of information. A simple little barcode would probably work. Of course, I got my barcode seminar. Check that out. And a quick check of my database says, yes, you do have the barcode seminar. Okay, good. So you know how to print barcodes. You know how to scan barcodes. The problem is going to be printing a PDF. Now, if you've got data that you want to give to them and it's in Access, like an Access report, that's no problem, right? Just like the barcode seminar, when you scan a barcode, it can pop up a form. You can have it pop up and print a report. So put your stuff in Access. Don't use a PDF. I don't know how to print a PDF. I have code that you can open a PDF. Okay, you just use the shell command. It'll pop up the PDF on the screen. And if that's okay, you want to just hit print, go right ahead. But if you want the printer to spit it out automatically, that's a limitation of Acrobat. Now, I don't have the paid version of Acrobat, but the free version of Acrobat Reader, I don't believe there's a way to automate the printing of it. If it's a report in Access, that's easy to do. Even if it's an image, if it's a one-page PDF and you could take a screenshot, save that as a JPEG, okay, and then load that into your database, right? Like I cover in the imaging seminar or my imaging video, or like I think I show with QR codes in the barcode seminar. Yeah, an image is fine, or an Access report is fine. It's just PDFs are tough. There's no way to automate printing in PDFs. Quick Google search does show some utilities you can try, third-party utilities that'll print the PDF directly to the printer. I have not tried any of them. I don't know if I'm going to recommend any of them. I'm certainly not going to sit here and play with them, but I don't personally use PDFs for much. So, in my ABCD, Access Business Contact Database, Part 5, I do build a document management system where I show you how to open and save different documents, including PDFs. But again, printing them is the problem. But unless you're talking about multiple page reports here, I would just take the PDF, make a screenshot of it, and save that as a JPEG. That's how I'd go about it. This next one comes from Brad, one of my gold members. This actually comes from a conversation in the forums on my website. I posted an update to my Access Updater. Access Updater allows you to, if you got a split database, you got your back end on the server, and all your different users have different front ends, and you want to make a change to the front end, you don't have to run around to all their computers to update their front ends. The Access Updater does it for you. And one of the things that I recently added in there is the ability to force reboot the databases so they can kick everybody out of the databases on a regular basis. I reboot mine once an hour because I have mine running on basically a server. It's like a copy of my database that processes orders and sends out emails and stuff. And I just have it reboot once every hour. Why? Well, basically it cleans up memory. There's something called a memory leak that runs around. And I've noticed if I don't reboot my database at least once every week or so, it'll start to act weird. It'll start behaving erratically. It might even lock up, giving me random error messages. But I find that once I put the forced reboots in once an hour might be overkill, but I kind of also use it like an alarm clock, so it's kind of like me, like once an hour. You might hear the Star Trek transporters once in a while in the background of my videos. That means that my system's about ready to reboot. Once an hour, it may be overkill, but it works good for me. But in a real situation where you got people, you might want to do a forced reboot every day at midnight, for example. It'll restart the database, make sure everybody's out of Access. You can do your backups without having to worry about files being locked. Okay? But Access is, I got a database that's constantly doing stuff. All right, it's constantly opening up records, pulling down stuff off the web. The analogy that I use on the website is I started building this database in 2004 that runs my current business off of 599cd.com. And, it's been running for, I've been slowly upgrading it over the last 17 years. And I've learned a lot about Access in the last 17 years. And like Scotty says, the Energizer's bypassed like a Christmas tree, so don't give me too many bumps. And no, I'm not going to try doing a Scotty accent. I'm horrible at it. But rebooting once a day is usually more than enough. But yeah, if you've got, especially if your VBA code isn't perfect, and mine from 17 years ago was far from perfect, I'm constantly finding things that I'm fixing. Like dimming variables, for example. Okay, if you dim a variable X as a long, all right, when the subroutine that it's in or the form closes, it usually frees that memory up. Usually. Doesn't always. It's not perfect. So that little bit of variable memory that was reserved that wasn't freed up is now basically wasted. You lose stack space too. So, especially objects, if you have to dim it and then you set, like record sets, for example, you dim RS as a record set and then you set RS equals, database.openRecordSet something. If for some reason that code crashes and that record set memory is never released back to the computer, it'll start leaking memory. That's what a memory leak is, right? It's variables that are not returned to where they should be from the great beyond, okay? And slowly over time, your programs will leak memory, and you'll get less and less and less available memory. It's a problem with Windows in general, but Access is not perfect, and it has those little memory leaks. So rebooting at least once a day will alleviate that problem. For me, I reboot once an hour because I'm a nerd. But that's why you'd want to force reboot, and it's handy to do. Plus, like Adam mentions in there, if you want to get someone out of the database for making changes, you can do a force reboot. Okay. I'll put a link to this conversation down below if you guys are curious. Want to go read the whole thing. Next up, Chris from YouTube. Would you happen to know if there's any information online where I can read up on how to make my Access queries all the same size and location? Nope. Sorry, can't be done. You can modify forms and report sizes, and you can even change them programmatically with VBA code. You can change the form positioning, its size, distance from the top, left, right, height, width, all that stuff. But like tables, queries will just open right back up to the last location that you saved them in. So you open it up, move it around, save it. There's no way to change that I know of. All right, there might be some deep, hidden, super secret method, but bottom line, what I'm trying to get across is tables and queries should only be used sparingly by the developer, you. And if you want to work with the data on the screen, use a form. If you want to control what it looks like, its position, its size, its height, its width, use a form. People, use forms. Stop working with tables and queries directly. It's only for once in a while to go in there and build something and poke around. And okay, forms. Got it? Okay. Next up, Nick from YouTube. I noticed you do not use prefixes such as TBL, FRM when naming objects, but rather suffixes like TNF. I like this approach. Is there a video or a document that gives more detail about this naming standard? No, not really. This is actually something I made up myself way back in the 90s. I think I started working with Access in like 94, Access version 2. And this is well before I knew anything about Hungarian notation. All right, like TBL customers, that's called Hungarian notation. And I really don't have any lessons on this. It's just something that I do. The whole reason why I started using T, I wanted to differentiate between tables and queries, because a lot of the wizards in Access, when you used to go to like pick a record source, you could have a table named customers and then a query named customers that might have something slightly different in it. And there was no easy way to differentiate between the customer table and the customer query. Like if you were building a form off it, the form wizard would just show you a list of both of them together, and you didn't have any idea which was which. So I started on my own naming tables with T on the end and queries with Q on the end, and then it just made sense. F for form, R for report, and then I never use macros, so I don't use M, and then module I just call them whatever, because the name is meaningless. So that's why I started doing that. And then, of course, over the years, I started reading other Access books, and yeah, developers will usually use TBL for table, TBL customer, QRY for query. And then they even go really far, and they'll like TXT first name to indicate it's text. I don't go that far. I've never had a need for that in my almost 30 years of building Access databases. Again, I think that's more for like people that work in teams, but that's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. I like the way I build it, and it works good for me. Is there a benefit? I mean, you should know what you're looking at. So if you see something that's like, CBO, customer ID, no, it's a combo box. I call it customer combo. That's just how I do it. All right, just be consistent. Pick your own naming convention and maintain consistency. If you're the only one developing your database, don't worry about it. Just maintain your own level of consistency. Well, another thing I've tried to do recently is I try to keep all my object names singular. So instead of customers T, it's customer T, always, even if it doesn't make sense. And I forget sometimes because it's a relatively new thing I started doing. But I've got a table on my website that I built years ago called contacts. No, what is it? Comments from my blog. Comments T, and every time I'm writing code, it messes me up. So I wish I would have kept it singular. But of course, that name is all over my website, and to change it would be a major pain. So that's another thing I started doing within the last couple of years. Just maintain consistency. That's it. Next question's from my forums on the website from Leon, one of my gold members. How do you restrict manual entry in a date field and force the user to use the date picker only? In other words, he doesn't want the user to be able to type in a date. He wants to force them to have to click and use the date picker, the little pop-up. Well, here's how you do it. Real easy. One line of code. In the key press event for that field, right-click on it, go to Properties, Events, find the key press event. You're going to put one line of code. That one right there. Key ASCII equals 0. What that does is the key press event fires when you press a key and you have focus on that field. All right? Key ASCII equals 0 basically blanks the keyboard input. So it doesn't return anything. It just cancels the user typing some stuff in. Okay? That's pretty cool. This way they can still click on it with the mouse, right? We're not talking about the mouse down event, right? We're talking about the key press event. Next up, Lyle from YouTube. Is this right? And then a big long function, which I'm not going to read. Because I get pound name for the outcome in the text box. And can you use a query instead of a table? Well, to answer the second part, yeah, you can use a query or a table. Doesn't matter. But if you take a look at the function, you got the function name wrong. And the reason why I'm including this in this video is because I get this a lot. This happens quite often. It's IIF, not IFF. It's immediate if. If you remember the name immediate if, you'll not make this mistake anymore. It's a very popular mistake, Lyle. Don't worry about it. I get this probably at least once every week or two. Someone has an error with this message in it. Okay, there you go. Immediate if. And the rest of it looks good. You don't need brackets. I mean, you can make this a little bit easier to read. You don't need brackets around these because you are a good boy and you didn't use spaces in your field names. Just sometimes not putting the brackets in there makes it easier to read, even though I know the query designer will put them in there automatically. Decount, yeah, the rest of it looks fine. The rest of it looks good. Personally, I usually switch this to 0. I don't like returning null values from ifs. It just causes problems sometimes. Just put a 0 in there. I mean, it can't be a valid customer ID anyways. Okay, but big problem there is your immediate if, not immediate if. It's if. Oh, someone's beaming in. It's if, not if. Okay, so just remember that. Next up, and finally for today, Shandy from YouTube. How do I average 3 fields in one table? For example, a student will have math, English, and science grades. Usually I finish the problem with math plus English plus science divided by 3, but I want to use average math plus English plus science. That's still a problem and not yet solved. Maybe you can help me. Yeah, I can help you. You're doing it the right way. The way you're doing it right now is the way you have to do it. It's not like Excel where you can do an average across columns, right? And say average up, B2 through D2. Access doesn't work like that. In Access, you will have to add up the different fields like you're doing them, math plus English plus science, and divide by 3. There's no other way around it. There is an average function, AVG, but it only works for a single field in a form footer or a report footer, okay, or a group footer. And there's also the domain average, DAVG, but again, it works for the same field. Okay, so Access is not a spreadsheet. Access is a database. So you'll have to add up the single fields individually and then divide by the total number of fields. There's just no way around it. Okay? Okay. So just be confident in the fact that you're doing it right now. Problem is, of course, yeah, if you add another thing, if you add, astronomy or chemistry or whatever, then you'll have to increase the number that you're dividing it by. But that's how it goes. So that's it for Quick Queries Volume Episode whatever number 5. And as a disclaimer, this may or may not have contained actual queries about queries, and no queries were harmed during the making of this video. As a reminder, if you want to learn a lot more than my normal Tech Help videos, become a member. Silver members and up get access to all of my extended cut videos. There's hundreds of them now. So lots and lots of material to watch. And, of course, you get me and my wit and charming personality. All right, we'll see you next time. How do you become a member? Click the Join button below the video. After you click the Join button, you'll see a list of all the different types of membership levels that are available. Silver members and up will get access to all of the extended cut Tech Help videos, live video and chat sessions, and more. Gold members get access to a download folder containing all the sample databases that I build in my Tech Help videos, plus my code vault where I keep tons of different functions that I use. Platinum members get all the previous perks plus access to my full beginner courses and some of my expert courses. These are the full-length courses found on my website and not just for Access. I also teach Word, Excel, Visual Basic, ASP, and lots more. But don't worry, these free Tech Help videos are going to keep coming. As long as you keep watching them, I'll keep making more. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and feel free to post any comments that you have. I do read them all. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, which is completely free, and click the bell icon and select all to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Click on the Show More link below the video to find additional resources and links. You'll see a list of other videos, additional information related to the current topic, free lessons, and lots more. YouTube no longer sends out email notifications when new videos are posted, so if you'd like to get an email every time I post a new video, click on the link to join my mailing list. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of building databases with Access. It's over 3 hours long. You can find it on my website or on my YouTube channel. And if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1. And it's also free for all members of my YouTube channel at any level. Want to have your question answered in a video just like this one? Visit my Tech Help page and you can send me your question there. Click here to watch my free Access Beginner Level 1 course, more of my TechHelp videos, or to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching this video from AccessLearningZone.com.